Yeah.
How you doing? Yes, you're a good boy.
That's a falcon. How pretty it is.
Isn't he beautiful? Now this is a Harris hawk. The Harris hawk is a bit of an unusual bird of prey. In many respects, this is the only bird of prey in the world that we know of that hunts in extended family groups like a pack of wolves. Whoa. Most birds of prey, Mama hawk does her hunting, brings food back to the nest. Daddy hawk does his hunting, brings food back to the nest. The Harris hawk, basically Mom and Dad hunt together as a team, and even last year's young will work with Mom and Dad this year to bring food back for this year's young. That's a really, really unique behavior. These guys are found in southern Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, and down through Mexico. The Harris hawk is a typical hawk. The Harris hawk has relatively short but thick, powerful toes.
It's a hawk, it is.
They have a vice-like grip which allows them to puncture and crush the quarry. Very long, very razor-sharp talons. Now, people think I wear the glove to protect my hand from these razor-sharp talons, and that really is not the case. I wear the glove for the hawk's comfort, not for my protection. You see, my hand is thin and bony, and really makes a terrible perch. And if I try to hold him on my bare hand, he's pretty unhappy with that. He doesn't like to be on the bare hand. He would much rather be on a nice, stable, padded perch. Does that make sense to everybody? So when you see a falconer wearing these big gloves, it does offer some degree of protection, but the hawk could certainly puncture through them if he wanted to. But what the glove is for is really for the hawk's comfort. Now the hawk has relatively long legs, and the reason he has relatively long legs is most of what he catches is on the ground. So he catches everything from rabbits on down to small lizards and mice and those kinds of things. And so he catches quarry on the ground. He has to reach through the brush to catch his quarry. And so with those longer legs, he can reach through the bushes. The hawk's wings are thick and broad. Show him those beautiful wings. Yeah, that's my puppy. Thick, beautiful wings. Now, he's primarily a sprint bird, which basically means that on my glove, we go out to the desert, a rabbit takes off running, he has to catch that rabbit in the first 50 to 75 yards, or the rabbit will outdistance him. So they're very, very quick, but only for a short distance. Now, the tail is very long and very broad, and it's extremely maneuverable. Look how much, this is the rudder he uses to steer with, and look how much that tail moves. I know, come here. Look at this. I wish my airplane had a rudder that would turn that well. Of course, I'd be doing like inverted loops or something, which would be really bad. So, the hawk, broad wings, longer legs, thicker toes, hunting primarily ground-based quarry. The falcon's long, slender toes, much smaller talons, shorter legs, thin wings that go to a point, a much shorter tail. The falcons are designed for high-speed flight, and they're strictly an aerial hunter. The large falcon, at a vertical dive, can reach terminal velocity of about 200 miles an hour, where the hawk's top speed in the dive is about 100. So the falcons are a lot higher, but they're not as maneuverable because of the high speed. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, if you're an aerial predator and you're coming in at 200 miles an hour trying to catch something, you probably don't want to catch a rabbit on the ground, because that would probably hurt. So that's why the falcons like to hunt primarily other birds. They like a little distance between them and the ground. Now, this is a male Harris hawk, and his name is Thumper. Thumper, you know that cute little cottontail rabbit on Bambi? That's what he eats. You know, you are what you eat. So that's kind of where he got his name from. Now, again, this is a male, and the way we can tell it's a male from a female, in all birds of prey, the females are a third or even more larger than the males. So if it's a large hawk, it's a female. If it's a smaller hawk of the same species, it's a male. And that's how we actually tell the sex on them. And I had a female Harris hawk many, many years ago. Her name was Sierra. Now this female, big female. This big female was twice as big as he was. And she was stolen from the nest by some teenage boys. Now, a hawk raised by man has no fear of man. We call that imprinting. A hawk raised by man with no fear of man can be extremely dangerous. And the reason they can be extremely dangerous is because they have no fear of man, which basically means that if the hawk gets mad at you, it's going to hurt you. Where a wild hawk, if it gets mad at you, it flies away. So that's why beginning falconers are not allowed to have young birds of prey from the nest, because they can be quite dangerous. Well, here we've got this big, big female, stolen from the nest by some teenage boys, raised by men, no fear of men. horribly abused. When she came to me, she had a broken leg. Well, I could fix the broken leg. That's what I do. But I could not fix the emotional scars that she carried with her for the rest of her life. That hawk was so emotionally disturbed, her favorite thing to hunt was cows. We would go out on the desert. If there was a cow within a mile, she'd have to go beat up a cow. She attacked horses. She attacked joggers. She attacked a farmer on his tractor. She had issues. Needless to say, we could not return her to the wild because she'd hurt people. So she stayed with me for the rest of her life as one of my personal hunting birds and one of my educational animals. Well, her name was Sierra. And back in California, where I had her, I had a little Toyota car. The back seat would fold down, and she just sat on a perch in the back seat of the car. And I had a really bad habit of leaving my keys on the floor of the car. I grew up in a little agricultural community about the size of Springdale here, and everybody left their keys on the floor of the car. If you need to borrow somebody's car, the keys were on the floor, go grab them. That's just kind of the way it was. Nobody ever thought about that. Well, one day we were coming back from one of our little hunting trips, and I stopped at the gas station to get a soda pop, and I walked into the store, and as I came walking out of the store, I heard screaming. And I saw a guy bailing out of my car. So I went running across the parking lot, got to my car, my hawk was on the ground next to the car, so I picked her up, put her back in the seat on the back seat of the car, and I noticed that my keys were picked up off the floor and they were put in the ignition. I know he tried, the guy tried to steal my car. Now, I don't know if he saw the hawk, didn't see the hawk, saw the hawk and thought it was stuffed. I have no idea what was going through his mind, but can you guys imagine, you jump into a strange car, you grab the keys off the floor, you put them in the ignition, you have 8 razor-sharp talons puncturing the back of your neck, wings beating, and the most awful growl you've ever heard. There were quarter-sized drops of blood going down the street. I know he needed stitches. I'm going to assume that's the last car he ever tried to steal. My hawk got the nickname my feathered Doberman Pinscher. Well, I've been rescuing these guys for over 46 years. My sweet wife Susan and I, we just celebrated last month our 36th wedding anniversary. Can you imagine somebody's put up with me for 36 years? She's an amazing young lady. Our very first date, I took her hunting with that hawk. I'm a romantic kind of a guy. So we get out on the desert, get the hawk out of the car, onto my glove, we get all the equipment off the hawk, and as my then girlfriend but now wife approached, my hawk turned around and faced her and growled violently at her. Then my hawk turned back around facing me, lifted its tail, and pooped on her. That was the first date. She married me anyway. It's her fault. Well, my wife and I have written a book. And if you like animal stories, it's a fun read. It's 40 years of wildlife rescue stories. The wisdom of grandparents. So if you like animal stories, that's kind of a fun read. The eagle is on the front cover here. I'm going to bring him out in just a minute. You'll get to meet him. I told my wife, Susan, I said, we need to put the story of the old Harris hawk in the book, old Sierra. And my wife says, well, if you're going to tell everybody about our first date, would you like to make the talk for me? Would you like to talk instead? Can you tell them about the book? I'm sorry. So I told my wife, she said if I'm going to tell everybody about our first date, then I need to tell everybody about the rest of our first date. And I told my wife, I says, well, here's the deal. If you want to tell everybody about the rest of our first date, you have to write the story. So she did. So if you want to learn about the rest of our first date, you got to buy a book. The profits from the sale of the book go to our rescue center to help us feed the injured animals.